Hi, I'm John, and welcome back to Insurance Made Simple. Today we're going to talk about auto insurance and more specifically liability, uninsured, underinsured motorist, and medical payments. So basically we're going to be talking about people that might be injured in an accident or hurt in an accident and the property that might be damaged in an accident and how we're going to manage that. So liability is state mandated. As everybody knows, when you go buy a car, you have to show evidence of an insurance. And in Colorado, that state mandate is that you have $25,000 in bodily injury protection per person or $50,000 per accident and $15,000 per accident for property damage. It's important to know that liability coverage follows the car and not the person. So, for example, if you loan your car to a friend, your auto insurance is going to be the primary coverage in that if the friend was in an accident, it's going to be the primary coverage, and the friend's insurance would be the secondary coverage. Something that's important to understand when you're purchasing insurance is really getting the state minimum isn't the best thing in the world for everybody. So think about the limits. If there's an accident, $25,000 in bodily injury coverage means that the most that any one person would get is $25,000. So if there's an ambulance, if there's an flight for life, or any specific hospitalization that lasts any length of time, $25,000 is not going to go very far in medical benefits. The other thing is the bodily injury doesn't just cover the medical portion of it, but it may also cover long-term rehabilitation. It may cover the wages that are lost for somebody that is away from their job for a period of time. So the expenses can be far more than just what they need to do to get well. Property damage on the same time, so is kind of follows the same way. So $15,000 isn't going to cover very much if the vehicle that's hit is a brand new car. It's hard to find a brand new car that's less than $15,000 these days. Now, recently we saw in the Denver area where a car went over a berm and ran into a house, and I can't imagine that that's going to be anywhere close to $15,000. So one of the things as you're purchasing insurance is you want to make sure that the limits you set are sufficient so that if you were in an accident or somebody driving your car was in an accident, the limit of coverage is enough so that your assets are not exposed. So for example, if you had low limits and the cost of the accident was much higher than what your limits were, that difference is going to come out of your pocket. And if you can't make that payment, then you could have a judgment against you, which would include 25% of your gross wages until it's paid off, any liquid assets that you own until it's paid off, and even a lien on your home, such that if you were to sell your home, any equity you have might be forfeited until that difference is paid off. So it's important to have enough coverage so that you aren't putting your assets at risk when there's an accident caused by you or somebody driving one of your cars. The flip side to the liability coverage is uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. So again, it's not a requirement. It's required to be offered. It's not required to be taken, but it is something that's important, because if you're going to cover your assets with a high enough limits, you would also want to be able to have that much coverage available to you if somebody involved in the accident or somebody that caused the accident was either uninsured or they had low limits. In Colorado, it's estimated that 1 in 6 drivers do not carry insurance, and 1 in 3 have the state minimum limits. And as I mentioned already, having the state minimum limits in many cases of a serious accident are not going to be near enough to be able to handle the accident, handle all the expenses of the accident. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about uninsured motorist coverage is that it covers you as a pedestrian. You don't actually have to be in a car to be covered. We've got a couple of cases in this agency where a pedestrian was hit while she was on vacation, and her uninsured motorist coverage is helping make up the difference for the medical expenses and therapies that she's handling. And another case where a person was on a bicycle and a car hit them while they were on the bicycle, and they've had some long-term therapy that they've had to deal with as they've gone through rehabilitation on it. The last thing we're going to talk about is medical payments. So we've talked about liability coverage, and that's basically medical payments and bodily, protection for the people in the other car, not your car. We've talked about property damage and that. When we talk about uninsured motorist coverage, if somebody else is responsible. So if somebody is responsible, if you're responsible for an accident, the people in your car wouldn't be covered under the liability coverage. They'd be covered under your medical payments. And again, that's something that isn't a requirement. It's required to be offered, but it can be declined. But if you take anybody, you have any passengers in your car, the medical payments portion or personal injury protection would cover the people in your car. So 3 things that are important to know about how do you insure people in an auto, from an auto insurance perspective. Liability coverage, as we mentioned, uninsured motorist coverage, and then medical payments and personal injury protection. And hopefully that's something that helps you understand those aspects of auto insurance. In our next lesson, we'll talk about comprehensive collision and some of the other miscellaneous coverages as well. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to call us, 303-443-1288. Thank you very much.